Hello and welcome to the Bold Outdoors YouTube channel. Today we find ourselves on Killpacker, and today we will be discussing these Maxxis Rampage tires. I now have 1,000 miles on these puppies, and they are easily my most favorite tires I've ever had. Now, are they great at everything? No, but they do a damn good job on whatever you ask them to do. Where on this particular trail, I found the X-Comps, my previous tire, to be incredibly lackluster. Whereas the Rampages are awesome. So as I just said, I have 1,000 miles on these. And so far, in the conditions I put them in, were just like the normal fall conditions. And around here in Colorado, we have a lot of gravel, a lot of rock. And then we came into the snow, so winter. Rampages were fantastic in the snow. Awesome, awesome tire. Whether you kept them at the normal PSI of say around 10, or if you aired them down to literally 0, fantastic traction. And then coming out of winter, I did take them down to Choke Cherry down in New Mexico. That's where I kind of found a little bit of a they weren't as sufficient, I guess I should say, as I would expect them to be. Now, Choke Cherry is very, very similar to Moab. And so, when it came to like slow rock crawling on smooth rocks and slick rock, they didn't perform as well as, I'd say, the X-Comps. They didn't perform as well as the Terabytes. Now, the tread pattern, I would almost expect that. The tread pattern is designed more for like a rocky gravel environment than, say, smooth rock crawling. Now, from my understanding, the Rampages are very similar to the Carnivores with a closer lug spacing. That's what they claim anyway, and I can see that. They also claim that the Rampages should last longer, and I can kind of see that. There's a lot of fans of the Carnivores, however, they're not fans of how the tread wear is they just wear super fast. So far, I can kind of see that with the Rampages. They do seem to last a little bit longer, and the closer tread spacing is probably more designed for rock crawling, so it is kind of a compromise between the two. However, they are not a rock crawling tire, so they're not going to perform as well as X-Comps or Rockzillas or anything like that, or even the Terabytes. I thought the Terabytes did really, really well in Moab. I also felt the Terabytes did a lot better in conditions like this than the X-Comps. The X-Comps were horrendous. And the big thing between the two, I'm not really going to be able to show it so much on this part of the trail. When I get to Roaring Creek and Nun Creek, I'll be able to demonstrate it a lot better. Is the X-Comps has massive understeer, but coming into like a gravel corner, you're coming into a corner, you steer, but you're still sliding straight. With the Terabytes, you kind of had a similar condition, however, you could kind of steer with the throttle. Whereas right there, steered into it, you actually have a little bit of oversteer, and then you can drift out of it. I mean, you have traction for days with the Rampages. find ourselves on Roaring Creek, Trail 173, although everyone calls it Pop-Up, and you'll see why here in a little bit. So the conditions are a little bit different with the gravel. Whereas Kilpecker is like very, almost like groomed gravel, Roaring Creek is more like dirt, like literally dirt. But the Rampages still do excellent. It's like you turn in, go. There's no way, what I just did right there with just a little bit of throttle input, there's no way I could have done that with XComs. Absolutely not. They would have kept going forward. You had to slow way down to negotiate turns and curves. Here's the reason why it's called Pop-Up. That Pop-Up camper has been there forever. It used to be in actually decent shape until a couple of years ago. But anyway. This section of the trail will highlight kind of like the comfort, I guess you could say. So for being a lightweight tire, they do have a stiff sidewall. So currently I'm at 8 PSI. And as I said, they surprisingly have a stiff sidewall. So for Moab, I think we're aired down to 4 PSI for many of those trails. For most other tires, I've always ran 10 to 12 PSI. I briefly ran about 14, 15 PSI in the terabytes after I had the pinch flat. And then after a while, the ride comfort just wasn't there, so I aired back down. This section of trail is Green Ridge 177. So long story short, even at 8 PSI, you're going to make the suspension do a lot of work and rely on the suspension to take up the bumps a lot more than, say, a softer sidewall tire. So in conclusion, I think the Maxxis Rampages are some of the best all-around tires I've ever had. Now, I wouldn't specifically go out of my way to buy them from Moab. They aren't the best for that type of conditions. I think you have to sort of change your technique a little bit. You have to air down more than you probably would think you would need to. You need like a running start or a bump. Some obstacles that with other tires, you can normally just kind of cruise up and idle up, not need much throttle input or anything like that. They don't grip as well. But if you're spending 99% of your time in other conditions, they're fantastic. And then you just deal with that 1% of Moab or whatever. So that's something to keep in mind there. So I give the Maxxis Rampages a thumbs up. Highly recommend them. A very strong tire, seem to be long lasting. They should easily last 2,000 miles. They are a fair price, easy to get, I think. So get you some. Just do it. Don't even think about it. Just do it. Again, this is Josh with Bullet Outdoors. If you like what I do, please subscribe. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up.